Welcome back to the podcast. We are here with Tim Fitzpatrick from RialtoMarketing.com. And if you are battling information overload when it comes to marketing, then you are in the right place listening to this podcast. If you tried every marketing tactic, if you're making common avoidable mistakes, if you wasted money on your marketing, then you're in luck because you're exactly where you should be. Tim is an entrepreneur. He's a business owner. He has expertise in marketing and business growth. He has a passion for entrepreneurial experience, developing and growing businesses. And we are going to be talking about the marketing fundamentals today, the things that you've overlooked that you need to be doing. So Tim, glad to be talking to you.
Robert, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
And I am excited to have you here. And you know, it's always easy to compare someone else's outsides to your insides. And it seems like everywhere you look, people have like huge lists, tons of traffic, paid ads are rocking and rolling. They've got apps, they've got books, and it's easy to have the FOMO. It's easy to say, I feel like I was behind 10 years ago. So what the heck would you have to say just right off the bat, as far as like reassurance, where we're at, what should we do? What should we be thinking about? Make me feel better.
Yeah. You know what? First off, and I don't remember where I heard this quote, but it's something to the effect of just don't compare yourself to others. If you compare yourself to others, you are never going to be happy. That goes in life and with marketing. So we see all these people that are talking about the great things they're doing in marketing. You're never getting the whole picture. You know, you never get it. You know, people saying, oh yeah, I did X amount in revenue, $1 million in revenue last month. Well, that's great. But what you don't know is, did they spend $950,000 in ads and they've got another, 30 grand in overhead? I mean, we don't know. We're seeing the tip of the iceberg. It is totally okay to be overwhelmed by marketing. There's so many people in that boat. It's marketing, I think, has gotten a lot more, it appears to have gotten a lot more complex because there are so many different channels. When I first got in business, the first business I was in was a wholesale distribution company. At that time, it was the mid 90s. Websites were informational brochures. There was no such thing as, there weren't paid ads at that point. There was no social media. Marketing was different at that point. Now, you've got your website, you have all your offline marketing tactics, you have Facebook ads, Google ads, content marketing, social media, email marketing, boom, boom, boom. The list goes on and on. It is so easy to get overwhelmed and feel like you have to be in every channel to be successful. You do not. You don't have to be everywhere. You have to find those channels that really work for you, nail one, and then you can start to expand from there. But I think too many people try to bite off more than they can chew in the beginning. And that's what really creates a lot of problems.
And I think you're speaking my language here. And I like your philosophy here because it's easy to, like you said, it's easy to see all the things that people have going on. You say, oh my gosh, I need to be on TikTok. I need to be on Twitter. and any time that I feel like I need like a boost in my business or like, a little bit of a jolt, I go back to something that I like forgot about years ago that worked like one time that I forgot doing it. Like I'll send an email blast to my list, or if I need some more webinar attendance, I'll go and I'll look at like my top 20 like leads scored or most recent customers, and I'll send out some quick messages. I'll look at some recent purchases and I'll type up a quick 1-page like physical letter. I'll do a mail merge. I'll send some stuff in the mail, and like every time it works. And sometimes there's lag time, right? Sometimes I'll be like, okay, I'm a little bit desperate and I'll do this technique and it will take like 30 days to pay off. But it's like anytime I just go back to just the simple things. And instead of doing 20 things and wondering which of the 20 things worked, I just go back to like one thing that like I know will work. Send some quick videos or send some quick Facebook messages. It's like going back to the marketing fundamentals. It feels good. It's reassuring. It's like I don't have to be just running around and doing all these things. And so when you talk about the marketing fundamentals, like what's your favorite technique, or what's your like handful of favorite techniques? Because it's easy to like be all over the place, but what is your go-to?
So here's my viewpoint on the marketing fundamentals. I see them as, there's 3 of them. I call them the marketing strategy trilogy. 1, your target market. you have to understand who you intend to attract, how you're going to serve those people. Okay. And everything from a marketing standpoint starts there. If you don't know who the hell you're going to attract, who you intend to work with, well, then you have no idea what to do with the second fundamental, which is your messaging. How you communicate, what you do, the problems you solve, the value you offer. If you don't understand your target market, you have no idea what to say. That's 2. 3 is you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan of how you're going to get that message in front of those people. And most people, they may have reached a certain level of success and they skip these. Tons of people skip them, or they give them lip service and don't do much with them, and they still have success. But just because they've had success doesn't mean that that's the best way to do it, right? Sometimes we succeed in spite of ourselves. And at some point, those people that skip them reach a ceiling that they can't break through. And most of the time you can come back to the fundamentals and then start jumping into all your other tactics. Because a lot of people that I talk to come to me and they say, well, I've tried SEO, or I tried paid ads, or I tried Facebook, and it didn't work. Well, those things didn't work because they had no idea who they wanted to work with, and or their message wasn't engaging. It didn't attract anyone. So it wasn't the wrong tactic. Okay. It was the right tactic. It was just done at the wrong time. They put the cart before the horse, so if you think about like standing up and hitting a baseball. Okay. I'm not a huge baseball guy, but I know, I played when I was a kid. You can't stand up to the plate and expect to hit a fastball unless you know where to stand at the plate, how far your stance should be, where to hold the bat. You've got good hand-eye coordination. If you don't have those fundamentals in place, it's never going to work. And those fundamentals never change. The fundamentals of any discipline, I don't care whether we're talking about marketing or anything else, whether it's golf or baseball or some other business fundamental, operational fundamentals, they don't change. They're evergreen, but they're not cool. They're not sexy. It's not TikTok. It's not Clubhouse, right? But if you don't do them, you are going to waste time and money, and you're going to have to come back to them at some point. So you might as well do them now.
And I relate to that a lot. And I'm kind of the same thing with the baseball aspect. I don't like the sport itself, but I also played as a kid. And I remember as a kid, like they'd put me in like left field or third base or shortstop. And I remember feeling a little like jealous of like, why don't they ever put me as like catcher or as like outfield or like first base? And it's because like I was exactly where I needed to be. And then there was a kid on my team who he'd always hit home runs, but that's all he would hit. Either he'd strike out or he'd hit home runs. And I would be like, why do I only get base hits? Why can't I hit home runs? But then like all these decades later, I'm thinking like, well, I had kind of a handful of things that always worked for me. So at the time, instead of looking at what I didn't have, I should have looked at what my strengths were and had more done on the kind of like improve those instead of trying to instead of ignoring my strengths and going over where to the weaknesses are. And so and I kind of again like I think kind of the same thing with the modern day marketing with the things that work and the things that don't work. And I end up when people bring up things like TikTok and Clubhouse, I kind of almost almost don't want to hear it. I'm almost like feeling a little bit allergic to it because I'm like yeah, Clubhouse, like that's a distraction from things that currently work. And could it grow into something that would work in my business? Well, sure. But I'm always like defensive these days of losing focus or losing time for the bright, shiny object over there. And so, to help us kind of get a handle on what we should be doing, do you have any interesting stories here since we're talking about the marketing fundamentals? Do you have any of these fun stories where there was this scenario where you had some kind of client or something where they wanted to pursue the bright, shiny objects and you said, well, wait a second, go back to your customer list or go back to your website copy, and you jumped in and those fundamentals really saved the day?
Yeah. So let's talk about, we have a client that she's a CPA. Okay. When we started working with her, her business was doing okay. I mean, she was doing fairly well, but she wasn't exactly where she wanted to be. And she wasn't working with the types of clients that she wanted to consistently. So when we started with her, we worked on a plan with her, but we really dug into her target market and who she was working with. And it was fairly broad, right? It was a lot of, small business owners, entrepreneurs, right? And there's nothing wrong with that per se, but they weren't ideal clients for her. And when we started looking at those clients that really just fit the bill for her, that were great clients, they were good long-term clients, they valued her, she identified that the clients that she had worked with in the past that really fit the bill for her were women-owned vet practices and dentists. So those are the two ideal client types that she started to go after. And when she went, that's pretty narrow, right? But when she went that narrow, now all of a sudden you can start to think about, okay, if I intend to attract vets or dentists, where do I need to be? Well, you start to create a list. What associations do they belong to? What influencers do they follow? What podcasts do they listen to? What YouTube channels do they watch? What trade shows do they attend? And now you've got a list of all those places. Doesn't mean you have to be, but places you could start to be to put your message in front of those people that you intend to attract. But you can't do that until you know who you're going to attract, right? Or who you want to attract. So we helped her start doing that work. And now she knows where she needs to be. She knows what to say to those vets and dentists, how to speak their language. And she's getting in front of, and she's starting to work with a lot more of those ideal clients. And when we're working with ideal clients, in my view, ideal clients are people that you love to work with, that are profitable, that you do great work for. So she's working with those people. Look, no, I'm not going to say nobody, but you're never going to work with ideal clients every single time, right? Or you might, but every once in a while, somebody's going to sneak through, right? But she's working with a lot more ideal clients, which is making her business a lot more enjoyable and a lot more profitable.
And the way you lay this out, it seems like having this strategy is a recipe for less guessing. Where before, like, I mean, you think, well, I'm looking at a blank sales page. What do I even say for the headline? Or let me just try such and such traffic method just because it seems good. But it seems like when you have this ideal client in mind and you have it as narrow as you're talking about, then the traffic kind of figures itself out. Where do they hang out? You make a list, you figure out within that list, where do you look for? And it also seems like it would be kind of more exciting and more encouraging the way that you explain this, because like we've all been there kind of making a web page and it's halfway done, or we're trying to write that email and we get stuck because we're just like, well, who am I even talking to? But if you have this ideal client, you say, I'm contacting this dentist or this veterinarian, then you might even have an image in your head of like who's the exact veterinarian that maybe I have a handful of those and I want more, or there's one that I want and I'll make the email copy directly for them. And it's like, it just seems like overall just a way better, a way more targeted way of going about it. And it's almost like you're like pulled towards your goal this way instead of just like seeing what sticks to the wall.
Absolutely. Right. So it takes out the guesswork. It gives you clarity on what your priorities are. And when you know what your priorities are and you have clarity, it reduces stress. You know exactly what you need to do. It also, when you know what your priorities are, it helps you eliminate distraction. And Robert, you and I both know there are so many distractions when it comes to marketing. If you don't have a plan that's laid out your priorities, it is so easy to, see an ad or see some email come into your inbox and go, oh my God, I've got to do that tactic. And you're a squirrel chasing a nut. And that's never going to be a good long-term, that's not a good long-term plan. You're just going to be spinning your wheels. So when you go through and you nail the fundamentals, you know exactly what you need to execute on. And when you execute consistently, you're going to get more consistent and repeatable results. And I mean, and you get traction this way. And even what comes to mind here is that you never really, I mean, you might get stuck, but not get stuck as often, because I don't know about you, Tim, but there's been so many times when I said, should I use this WordPress theme, or should I use this plugin, or should I use should I sign up for this monthly SaaS service? And it's like, when you think about
someone who really knows what they want, it's like the tool doesn't really matter. You're like, okay, well, like I'll figure it out like some way. I'll use whatever website platform to make it work. It's just if you know where you want to get, and you know what the future looks like, and what, you know, getting this project done or having this goal done looks like, then all these little finer details, like they're just things to figure out, but they're not things to stop you from getting there, if that makes sense.
No, I totally agree. And it's when you have the right plan in place and you know what metrics you're going to track, now you can determine whether the actions you're taking are having an impact or not. And you and I both know this. Look, anybody that tells you, oh, do this and it's, you know, it's always going to work. No, it's like, that's, our businesses are all a little bit different. There's always nuances. Nothing you do with marketing is always going to work. You're always going to have to be testing, tracking the right metrics to determine what's working and what's not, and make those course corrections along the way. It's, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm a marketer. I'm not perfect. No marketer is perfect. We're always testing. We're always looking at how we can, you know, make it incrementally better. And it's those small incremental changes over time that make all the difference in the world. But I talk to people all the time who go, yeah, I was spending money on marketing. I had no idea whether it was working or not. Yeah, because you weren't tracking anything. We need to track. And when we track and we get data, now we can make knowledgeable, informed decisions about the adjustments and changes we need to make to get to where we want to be. But until we have the data, we have no idea.
You make it sound so simple. And I mean, and that idea right there of just like tracking, measuring, and having the data. I mean, it's the answer to so many problems. And it's even the answer, I think, to even problems that we didn't know we were asking. It's easy enough to say, okay, well, I should be like, you know, measuring my ads. And so that way, I know, like, if I spend $1 and I get $1.20 back, then I'll do more of that. And that part makes sense. But even like just things in your business in general, like if I put time into this, is this paying out money? And even like, you know, simple things like, you know, you're on a podcast here with me, and I sometimes get blocked with hosting a podcast or being on podcast, but then someone told me some advice a few months ago of like, well, just track how much money that's making. And like, if you host a podcast episode, like figure out based on like all these guests and how much money you're making and how much time it is, like what's the dollar figure per podcast that you host. And if you're slow about being on other podcasts, then like measure that too. And at least then you can have this kind of educated decision, like you're mentioning here, of saying like, okay, well, if I'm making, you know, $50 or $90, then is that something to encourage me to continue going? It is, if the number is too low, do I need to do some tweaking? If the number is really low, is it just a reason to just completely like throw it out and try something else? But at least this way, we're not just guessing, we're not doing things based on emotion, like we're actually doing things based on the data. What a concept. And it not doing it sounds insane from the outside looking in, but I think I just feel like this is a common problem, just not even knowing that like this needs to be a thing that we need to be aware of.
It happens all the time. So if you're in that boat, you're not alone, and it's totally okay. It's not your fault, frankly. There's so many different metrics with marketing. There's this sea of metrics, and a lot of them don't matter. They're vanity metrics. So it's not your fault if you're in that boat. Here's 3 simple metrics to start. Okay. Look, I was a math major. Okay. I'm super analytical. I can dig into the weeds on this stuff. But I think the easiest place for most business owners to start is with 3 metrics. 1 is how many leads are you generating? 2 is where did those leads come from? Where did each one of those leads that you generate come from? That tells you the source. And the 3rd is how many leads are then converting to new customers. Really simple. Once you have those 3, then you can start to get a little bit more sophisticated. But in my opinion, until you know those 3 metrics, you have no business tracking anything else, because none of it matters. When you know how many leads you generate, where they're coming from, which tells you whether some of the which activities you're taking place in right now are actually working, and then how many leads it takes for you to get a customer, that's super empowering. Because now you can start to work your way backwards. And if you say, hey, I want to grow my business to X amount of revenue. Well, now you have some data, right? Well, to get to that amount of revenue, we need X amount of customers. right? Because we know our average customer is worth X amount of dollars, and it takes X amount of leads to get one customer. Now you know exactly how many leads you need to generate to hit the revenue you want. That's the easiest place to start. Can we get more sophisticated? Yes, we can. But until you understand those top line numbers, I think you're wasting your time going into other metrics.
That's fantastic. That makes it like a no-brainer, an easy starting point. How many leads are you getting? Where are they coming from? And then how many of those are turning into sales customers? And like just from those three answers, like you said, like there's all kinds of like answers in between the three that end up getting solved for you. Because like you say, like, well, if it's a low number of the amount of leads every day, or if it's zero, then that's just like, that's the first problem to solve. And if you have that problem solved, then it's like, okay, well, based on the source of where those leads are, if I like the result overall, then I'll just go back to the well of more of that. And again, like how we're talking about, like what's the value of these leads coming in. So now, you know, like if it's worthwhile, like it's just those three things. I mean, that's fantastic. That solves a lot of problems right there. And so we're kind of getting close to the end of our conversation here. And I want to make sure that we work in a little bit of failure, not much, but just to talk about some difficulties, struggles, because that's always like the interesting part. And it's always good to see the failure as like a before and after, because, you know, we like, and we're being relatable here, right? Like you're saying a lot of things like, it's okay. Don't stress out too much about like where you're at right now. But if does any failure come to mind, Tim, as far as like some area where like you struggled, you were frustrated, but then there eventually was a rainbow at the end of the storm, and eventually you figured it out? And any fun stories like that come to mind?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, look, I'll use myself as an example, because I failed so many times. It's not even funny. But when I initially got involved in marketing, I struggled, man. It was hard, dude. There are so many marketing companies out there, and I really didn't have a firm understanding of the types of clients I wanted to work with. I was saying the same things as everybody else, and I really didn't have a plan. I was trying all these different things that people said, I needed to do. And I'm like, dude, this isn't working. Like, I'm an implementer. I take action, and I'm like, why is this not working? And it wasn't until I was exposed to a couple different things. One was StoryBrand. Are you familiar with StoryBrand?
I've heard of it, but I wouldn't be able to explain it if you asked me.
Yeah, StoryBrand. So StoryBrand was a company founded by Donald Miller, and that's the messaging framework that we use. Man, when that was introduced to me, it just made sense to me, and I was like, God, this is so simple. Why aren't more people doing this? And that was one turning point for me. The second was I actually joined a marketing consultant network called the Duct Tape Marketing Network, which was founded by John Jantz. He's been in small business marketing for I don't know how many years. Super smart guy. And the whole approach with duct tape marketing is about applying marketing as a system, so that you can execute it consistently and get results. And one of the firm foundations of duct tape marketing is about strategy, getting strategy, what I call the fundamentals, getting those fundamentals in place before you start to get tactical and take action. And so it wasn't until I had those two things that really helped me, and that changed my business. When I was able to start taking those principles and really implement the fundamentals in my business, then I started to get traction and started getting much closer to where I wanted to go. But until that point, I just felt like I was spinning my wheels. And I think a lot of people are in that boat where they get in, they start a business, because a lot of us start our business because we have a passion for it, right? We love, we're crafts people. We love doing that. But man, the business side of it and the marketing side of it, which, marketing, man, if you don't have marketing, you can have the best product or service in the world and none of it matters because you're not bringing in any leads and customers. So who cares? So marketing is, in my opinion, look, we're biased, right? We're both marketers, but you got to have marketing in some way, shape, or form. And I struggled with that in the beginning. And it was that getting introduced to those two concepts and then, crafting it in a way that it made sense to me so that I could implement it. That's when my business changed.
And that was a painful lesson. And I think for me early on too, of thinking that I would just take it day by day. I thought that I would just make it up as I went along. I felt like I was so unique. No one else has been on this path. And I mean, kudos to you for not taking these concepts and merging it and trying to say that you thought of it. You say story brand, you say duct tape marketing, and you're taking those proven systems and applying it to your own uniqueness. And that way you kind of have the best of both worlds, right? You have something that works, but then also you've tailored it, you customize it for your own needs. And since we're talking about marketing fundamentals, I mean, that's the simple way of going about it. That's the way of doing it without having to fall into the not invented here syndrome of thinking you need to just do everything from scratch. Like, people have already somewhat blazed the trail, and sure, you can kind of make it your own and carve out your own little unique niche, but there's so many internet computer marketing problems out there that people have already solved way before you came along. Like, why make it so hard on yourself? Why not plug into something that works? And you also mentioned in there a little bit about like a marketing mastermind too, and like having people to bounce ideas off of, and other people who, again, they have problems that you might not have yet, or problems that aren't quite yours but you can relate to. And again, like, these are all, and since we're talking about like marketing fundamentals, like, they're all just kind of reminders for people like us. And it's so easy to get so advanced and to get so off into some other path and say, well, wait a second, I forgot about this really important thing that I need to be doing, and maybe going back and thinking about that target audience, or even like rethinking the target audience, right? Because it's easy to let the ego get in the way and say, I figured all that out 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but maybe it's time to revisit. And there's something that you said kind of near the beginning of our conversation here, Tim, when you said, like, some people say, well, this didn't work, right? Paid ads didn't work, or SEO didn't work. But it's like, if it's a thing you need to do, go back and make it work. Would you say, I tried tying my shoes and it didn't work, and now I just don't wear shoes? I tried driving a car, it didn't work. Like, some things, go back and make it work, or figure out a way to apply it in your business. So this is all, I think this could be a wake-up call for a lot of people who think that they just need to skip over all this stuff and, skip elementary school and jump right into college. Well, maybe the reason why you've been having so much difficulty, why things have been so tough this whole time, is because you haven't gone back to the simple things that work, that you need to maybe put the ego aside and go back and revisit.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you just said that I think is really important is your business is evolving. So this fundamental work that you do, it's not set in stone. It's not in concrete. You need to revisit it every once in a while to make sure that you're still on track. And if you're not, do you need to make shifts? And it's totally okay to make shifts. I mean, I see people change and update their target market and their ideal clients all the time. It happens, and that's okay. But, so don't feel like this is a one and done thing. It is something that you have to stay on top of. And, like you said, a lot of people just get tactical immediately, and they're skipping, kindergarten and first grade. They're jumping right into, their senior year in high school. And it's like, dude, that's never going to work. You're going to flounder because you skipped all the grades before. That's what the fundamentals do, is they lay that foundation so that you can start to get much more tactical. And when you do get tactical, the results, you're giving those tactics the best chance of succeeding.
I like that a lot. Instead of just jumping into the tactics and hoping that they'll work on their own, if you combine that with the strategy that you have in place already, then you're kind of getting the benefit of both things instead of just the shot in the dark. So this is great to hear. This is great to think about. Reassuring, simple, doable. And now, where do you come in? If someone listened to our podcast conversations today and they say, I'm fired up, a lot of things make sense, I want to take some action. Tim says he's an implementer. I want to be an implementer like him. What's the next step? Where do we go? What do we do? What's the website? What's the action to take?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. So our website is rialtomarketing.com. That's RIALTO marketing.com. The first place I would recommend you go, we set up a landing page just for your listeners. So if they go to rialtomarketing.com/marketer-of-the-day, there are some free resources there about these fundamentals that we touched on. The marketing plan template we use, the messaging template, target market resources there for you. Just go there. Next step, if you're interested in talking to us, just schedule a free consult. Get a free consult. It is all over our website. What we do is we help people get those fundamentals in place, target market, messaging, having a plan so that you know what your priorities are and what you're going to execute on. And then we can help be there as a coach or an advisor or a consultant as that plan is implemented. So we can just be an advisor and give people the feedback so that they know as they implement their plan that they're doing it right, or we can actually be the owner of the plan and drive it.
Fantastic. Well, the place to go is rialtomarketing.com/marketer-of-the-day. And you know what, Tim, whenever I am resisting change, I tell myself, well, let me just give myself X number of weeks to try it out. And if I don't like the templates that are on that landing page, I'll give it a chance for a few weeks. And if I don't like it, I can always go back to the way that things always are. And if I if I schedule one of these free consultations, and if I don't like the advice that I hear, or I try the advice, and after 2 months I don't like it, I can always revert back to the place where I started. But there's a reason why you podcast listener are here listening to our episode, because you're not entirely satisfied with the way things are, and you're not 100% it's not all completely working the path that you're on right now. So it's time to maybe be open to some new ideas and try things. And if you don't like the way it goes, you can always go back, but why not give it a chance? Because Tim and I have been talking so much about the bright, shiny object, and you start on something and then you don't finish it and you start on something else. And we can all relate to that. So how about this is the motivation that you finally have, that you finally need? I mean, since we've been talking this whole call about how important it is to think about the people you're helping and where they're hanging out. Well, you are one of the people that Tim wants to help out right now. So why not accept his help and stop going it alone? Use him and his team to get to where you need to go. rialtomarketing.com/marketer-of-the-day. Go there, get those templates, click on the free consultation button. You have everything to gain and nothing to lose. Try him out, see what he has to say, and I guarantee you'll love it. rialtomarketing.com/marketer-of-the-day. Anything to say here, Tim, to wrap up and wind down our conversation?
Yeah, I just don't overlook the fundamentals. So many people skip them. They're not cool. They're not sexy, but they lay the foundation for you to build the rest of your marketing house from. So super important. I can't stress, you are going to save yourself so much time and money if you get them in place first. So
fantastic. And you know what, Tim, the fundamentals, the end result can be sexy. Like a 2x4 board on its own is not sexy, but if you make a really cool looking house out of it, then what it creates for you can be sexy. So even if the present is not sexy, the future can be.
Yes, that's absolutely right.